So around 1990, there was a series of SCSI hard disk enclosures that you could buy for your Commodore computer. And they came in sizes between 20 meg and probably about 2 gig. You can optionally pair them with JiffyDOS, which was a product that increased the speed of storage devices attached to the Commodore serial bus. And it made these external hard drive go from fast to blazing fast. I thought it would be fun to set one of these up and build a virtual environment out of it and see how it might increase the productivity of software development using such a device. So this could be really fun. Now I'm using the VICE emulator version 3.7 on Windows 11, and out of the box it does not come with all the parts you need to emulate a CMD HD, and I'm sure it's because of copyright reasons. So here you'll see that there's 3 files that you need to get a hold of. You need to get a hold of a boot ROM, you need to get a hold of the HD tools diskette, which is that D64. That's got the tools to partition and configure the hard drive. And then of course you're going to want to grab a copy of the manual. And the copy that I found wasn't great or easy to read, but it was good enough. But it's super useful. There's just a treasure trove of information on how to use the features of the DOS that come inside the hard drive. So in my VICE, I'm going to go to the settings screen. I'm going to take a look at the peripheral devices available to me today. And you'll see I've got my 1541-2 on drive 8, a 1541-2 on drive 9, and my drive 10 is empty. Now there is a parameter here for the CMD HD, and it's set to 8G, which of course is gigabytes. We're going to make a 500 meg version of this because I just don't need that much space. But you'll notice that in the drive dropdown, it's only the CBM drives. And the reason why is the ROM file does not come with VICE. So if we go into the machine area settings and click on ROM, and we're going to click on drive ROMs, you'll see here for CMD HD it has a file name. They're just giving you an idea of what you need to go find, and we have found that. So we're going to point this at the one that I got off the internet. So we're going to press browse, and I'm going to choose the boot ROM here. So we're going to hit open. With this boot ROM in place, when I go back to this drive section and I go to drive 10, CMD HD is now an option. So we're going to choose that, and we're going to hit close. Now down here, you'll see drive 10 will appear. This light's going to start blinking green, and eventually it's going to start blinking red when it realizes that there's no disk inside the enclosure, at least the virtual enclosure. So what do we need to do to fix that? We're going to go back into our DOS prompt. So we need to create a 0-byte file that will be our disk image. So to create a 0-byte file in Windows, you can do copy, con, and we're going to call this my hd.dhd. The con means I'm copying from the console, the keyboard, to a file called myhd.dhd. I'm going to press enter. At this point I can just start typing stuff and it would go into the file, but we don't want anything in the file, so we're going to press Ctrl Z to mark the end of file, and now it says one file is copied. If I do a dir, there's a 0-byte file. That's all we need. So now back into the emulator, we're going to go to File. We're going to attach a disk image to drive 10, and we can press Alt-0 as a shortcut. Okay, and in the dialog you'll see a DHD, which is the file that we want. We don't want the D64, so we're going to choose this DHD file to drive 10, and we're just going to hit attach load. So at this point now you want to hard reset the Commodore 64 so it sees a disk image and the drive enclosure will be ready to work with it. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Reset, we're going to do a hard reset, and in the future we can press Alt F12 to do that. And now that blinking green and red light is gone. So now we want to attach to drive 8 that tools disk. So File, attach disk image to drive 8, and now we're going to attach the CMD HD tools. Now let's take a look at what comes on this disk. So there's a whole ton of utilities on this disk, but we're only interested in a handful of things. We're interested in create sys. That's a program we're going to run first. That's what's going to initialize the hard drive and get it ready for us to use. And then we're going to use the hdtools.64 program to partition it and get it set up. And then we're going to use fcopy to copy some programs to it. So let's start with create sys. This is a basic program, so we're going to load it with comma 8. Okay, we're going to run it. And it's going to give you pretty much a giant warning. This program creates a new system error in your hard disk. You're going to lose all your stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's fantastic. We're just going to press enter to create the new system. Now there's all these instructions about holding down swap buttons and etc. But we're emulated, so we don't have to do any of those things. So you just press enter. We're just going to choose a default. And where it says clear area below system, we're just going to press Y. Now there's no emulated sound for the CMD HD, so just imagine a whirling drive sound while this is running. Now this process does take a few minutes, so I'm going to edit out a lot of the waiting. But when you do this for real, just let it do its thing. It takes a little while. All right, it says press the reset on a hard drive to reboot DOS. Well, we're just going to reset our Commodore 64 here by using our reset hard reset button. And now the hard drive is ready for us to partition. So now we're going to load the hdtools.64 program. And again, we're going to load this comma 8. Okay, we're going to type run. And now we're in the hdtools program. All of these instructions don't mean anything to us because we're virtualized. So we're just going to press a key. Now we're going to press 3 to view the current partition table, and you should get an error message. It says HD is not set for reconfiguration. So we have to configure the hard drive to go into a configuration mode, and you do that by clicking on the 10 down here, and you're going to see an option here called Reset Drive 10 to Configuration Mode. So we're going to click that. So now we can press a key here. We can now hit 3 to view the partition table, and this will now show us the partition table. And don't worry, the program hasn't crashed. It just takes a couple seconds to read it. All right, and you can see here there's 254 partitions. So we have quite a bit of options to configure this drive and to dice it up in any way we want. I'm going to press enter to exit. Press 4 to create a new partition. First thing it's asking for is which partition number we want to create. And you can do these out of order, and you can just use plus and minus to pick the one you want. Clearly, we're going to use the first partition, so we're going to press enter. It's going to ask you for what type of partition. We're going to choose native. Aside from the native partition, you can make a partition to emulate certain drives, like a 1541, a 1571, a 1581, a 1581 using CPM. There's a partition type called pbuff, which in the manual it says it's for print buffers, but it's not implemented yet. So as far as I can tell, this is completely useless at this point in time. And FORN is a foreign partition. I think the idea was you could use this hard drive with another computer like an IBM PC, because it is a SCSI drive. But we're going to stick with native. I'm going to press enter. Now it's going to ask you for the block size. A typical 1541 disk, I think, is like 660 blocks or so. So this is actually smaller than a 1541 disk. Now, if we press minus, we can get the largest possible size that we can make in a partition, which is 16 megabytes. And for this partition, I'm just going to call it copycat. I'm going to press enter. And it says, do you want to write this new table to the hard drive? And hit yes. All right, so we're going to create a couple more partitions. All right, we're going to do the same thing here. I'm not going to make these so large. I think I'm going to make this one 768. I'm going to call it Merlin. And I'm naming these partitions after projects I've also made videos for. Merlin is a assembler package. I'm going to create another partition. And this one I'm going to call Dancing Mouse, which is a project that I've written for the Merlin assembler. Again, I'll do the same thing. I'll make a partition about the size, a little bit bigger than a disk. And we'll call this the Dancing Mouse. Yep. And then lastly, I'm going to create a partition, but I'm going to make it a 1541 partition. And I'm going to call it Wizardry 1, because I wanted to try copying a video game to a native just to test out the drive emulation. So I'm going to press enter. I'm going to create that. Cool. So now we have our partition. So if we view our partition table, we could see our 4 partitions and how they're set up. All right. If you wanted to, we can use number 2, so when a drive is turned on, it can default to a certain partition that you like. So partition 1 doesn't have to contain the drive, that's the default. You can change that around at any time. So now let's exit to basic. Okay, once you exit to basic, you're going to want to reset your machine so the drive is all ready to go. Cool, and now if I load $ off of drive 10, I can see my first partition with an insane amount of blocks free, 65,216. Now, a couple interesting things you can do here. If you forgot what partitions you created on your drive, you can load $=P off of that drive, and you'll get a listing of the partitions, which is kind of neat. So you can see the system partition, right? It's got the little SYS as a file type. We have our native partitions, our copycat, Merlin, dancing mouse, and our wizardry partition, which is a 1541 emulator partition. So that's kind of neat. So before we use these, we need to put some programs on it. The utility disk comes with a program called fcopy. So we're going to load that up. And that's also reloaded with $8. I'm going to run this. So the first thing we're going to do is set the source device, which is going to be our drive 8. So I'm going to press F1. It says, cool, drive 8 to 1541. Let me change the disk that's in there. So I'm going to use Alt-8 to attach a different disk to it. So I'm going to choose Copycat. Copycat is a project devoted in Turbo Macro Pro, and this will be a good test of the hard disk. Now we're going to choose the target device by pressing F5. We don't want drive 9. We got the hard drive. And then you can choose a partition with F7. So we'll choose Copycat. And now we're going to press F to select the files we want to copy. Press Enter. I'm going to press T to copy everything. Then I'm going to press C. And I'm going to say skip. I'm going to press Enter for the target disk because we already know it's there. And now it's going to copy all of these files onto the hard disk. And at the bottom of the screen, we can see drive 8 and drive 10 are both active while it's copying that data over. This takes a few minutes, and since I'm not very patient, we're going to use the warp feature of VICE to make it go quicker. So we're going to press Alt-W and let it copy all that stuff over in high speed. Then we're going to press Alt-W to turn warp mode off. Then it says, do I make another copy? Nope. All right, so now we're going to copy Merlin, which is another really great assembler package. So we're going to press Alt-8 to change our disk. Okay, we're going to choose the Merlin diskette. We're going to change the partition with F7 on the destination drive to Merlin. And then once again, we're going to press F to choose our copy, to choose our files. Target all, and hit copy. And skip. And enter. And then warp mode. All right, we'll turn warp mode off. And nope, we're not going to make another copy. We're going to press Alt-8 again. And I'm going to choose my dancing mouse project that I wrote in Merlin assembler. I'm going to press F7 to copy that to our dancing mouse partition. And then we're going to do F to choose files. Once again, we're going to press Enter. T to toggle all of them, C to copy, and skip, and Enter. Great. Do I make another copy? No. So I think we've copied enough stuff using the file copier. So now we're just going to Alt F12 and restart our computer. All right, so we should see our files on drive 10, and our default partition, which is there, has Turbo Macro Pro and our copycat program. Now, if we wanted to change the partition, we would have to open 15, 10, 15, quote, CP, and then a partition number. We'll choose 2 for Merlin, and we'll close 15. All right, so now if we load $10, we'll see that the Merlin is there. So while this is neat and this works, and you can see that you can use the hard drive without JiffyDOS, we really want to have JiffyDOS because JiffyDOS just amps up the speed of disk access on this device and adds features to make it much easier to use. So we're going to reset this. And we're going to load Turbo Macro Pro, 10, 1. So that took about 9 seconds. It takes about 48 seconds off of 1541, so it's already much faster. But we can make this much quicker, and that's by using JiffyDOS. Now, JiffyDOS is another product you need to grab off of the internet, but this one is still sold, so you kind of want to buy it. I think it was like $15 or $30. It wasn't that expensive. When you buy it, you're going to get a manual, the PDF that I have here, and you're going to get a ROM for the 1541 2 disk drive to make disk access for your disk drives cheaper. And you're going to get one for the actual Commodore 64 itself. So how do you configure the machine to use them? Well, we're going to go back into settings. Okay, we're going to go into machine. We're going to go into ROM again. And here, instead of this kernel, we're going to choose the JiffyDOS ROM that we purchased. Okay, so we're going to choose this file here. Now your computer is going to reset, and you're going to see the JiffyDOS kernel is now inside of the machine, and you'll get a little bit of a different welcome message to the computer. And then under drive ROMs, change the 1541.2 to use this version of JiffyDOS. Now with JiffyDOS enabled, we can load TMP off of the hard drive much quicker. And man, I don't think it's even just a few seconds to load TurboMacro Pro. JiffyDOS also gives us a really neat feature called the DOS Wedge. These are all really shorthand commands to work with the disk drive, and this makes things easier to work with. So for example, at $, so instead of load $8 list, you can press this to get a directory listings. If I want to change the drive that I'm working on, I can use at $10, for example. Now we're on a hard drive, and at $, will give us a directory of the hard drive. All right. I wanted to see the partition table. I can use $$P, and I can see the partitions that are there. Another interesting thing you can do is at $T, and this will give you a directory with timestamps. So when these files are created on a hard drive, an actual timestamp was created from your computer. As we can also change partitions really easy with this. So I can do at $P to see our partition table again. I can do CP2, and now I'm in the Merlin partition. All right, so with that said, let's play with TurboMacro Pro. So we're going to change the drive to 10, and we're going to use %TMP. This is load TurboMacro Pro, 8,1. And as again, you can tell it is insanely fast. sys32.768. I'm going to get into too much detail of how TurboMacro Pro works, but definitely check out my TurboMacro Pro video series on where I created my first game ever. But I'm going to show you how it compiles and how it's compatible with this hard drive. So I can use back arrow L to load my project. It's called Copycat. And look how quick that loaded, just popped right up. Copycat is a program that is built for multiple source files. So when I assemble this now, it's assembling off of the hard drive, and it's doing so at a pretty fast speed. I think about 20 seconds with the hard drive and with JiffyDOS. Whereas a full compile without it takes about a minute. So it's much, much quicker. So TurboMacro Pro works pretty well. So you can send DOS commands from TurboMacro Pro. So I can do left arrow @, and I can do change partition to. And you'll see the partition was selected. I can use left arrow *, and you can see that it changed disks. So this program is going to work really well with a hard drive. And this might be really fun to use this to develop programs. Let's try Merlin and see how that works with it. So we're going to reset our machine. So we're going to change our drive number 10. We're going to change the partition to 2. And then we're just going to do a /* to load *, 8. Then we're going to type in run to run it. And Merlin just basically loads up instantly. Merlin also supports multiple devices and can issue disk commands. So if I do a C for catalog, it shows me the Merlin application disk. But I want to change it to my project. So I can X run a disk command, change partition 3, because that has the project that I have on here. I can hit catalog, and there's my project. And look how quick it is. It's really, really snappy. So to load my project in, I'm going to load this file here, mouse.s. So I come over here. I'm going to press L to load source. I'm going to type in mouse, and it's loaded like this instantly. and L, and I can list my assembler code. And you can also see this project is comprised of just a bunch of files. Was that 2, 4, 6, 8 files? So in Merlin, I just type in ASM to assemble it. You press no for this command, and it's going to assemble it. There's the output. I can press F1 to suppress the output, let it assemble without going to the screen. And it's done. Just lightning fast, which is really cool. I can press enter to jump back to, press Q to go back to the main menu. I can save this project out to disk. And we're going to call it, I don't know, we'll call it test. Press enter. And it wrote it to disk already. Just so quick. So if I were to now exit this, and once again, we'll change the device to 10. We'll change the partition to 3. And there's my project. Merlin saved it as test.o. So we can percent test.o. And I can sys32768. And here's my dancing mouse project. Now there's quite a few other neat things you can do with this drive. Another feature you can use of the CMD hard drives, and this only works in native partitions, is subdirectories. So if we change our device to 10 and do a directory here, our copycat partition has 16 megs of free space. As you can imagine, if we just dumped everything into this directory, it would get pretty large. So this is very similar to how directories work on your PC. So we can use the md command to make a directory, and we can make one called test. Right? And if we do a directory now, we will see that there's a test directory. We can cd into test. And of course, test is now a kind of little partitioned space of files in the same drive. So it shares the same blocks free. And we can make multiple levels of directories within that. And again, we can see now that test has a directory called sublevel 2 in it. All right, and then you can remove them with RD. So we can move it from here, and it's gone. We can use cd/ to go to the root directory. So this is very, very familiar to most people that know command lines. And then we can remove test. So the CMD hard drive in an emulated environment so far is just awesome. And paired with JiffyDOS, it's really fast and very usable. And it makes learning 6502 assembler using, products like Turbo Macro Pro and Merlin just quicker and easier and just way more efficient. But there's a couple minor issues that I'm having with emulation setup that I haven't figured out yet, or maybe they're bugs. I'm not really sure. So if you remember, we created a partition earlier in this video. Oops, wrong drive. So let's go to drive 10 and look at our partition table. I created a partition called Wizardry1. That's a 1541 emulated partition. And the idea that it had was, I'll load in software that doesn't have a traditional disk directory, and I can use the emulated 1541 to play some of these old video games off of it and get that speed out of it. If you look on the tools disk that comes with the disk drive, there's a product called mcopy. Mcopy is meant to do a sector copy of disks to the hard drive into the emulation partitions. And we're going to run it. It's very similar to fcopy, except it's copying entire drives. I'm going to change my drive 8 to copy the first disk of Wizardry. And as you can see from here, it's just one of those disks where clearly things are written to certain sectors and whatnot. So we're going to attach this. I'm going to say select my source, 1541, set my target as hard drive. And when I choose the partition type, it's only going to let me choose an emulated partition, because that's what this utility is for. Now, if I hit copy, it'll start. It'll do this little thing where it uploads drivers, and then it'll just hang here, and it just never does anything. I've tried other copy programs like Fast Hack'em and Carbon Copy, and they all seem to do the same thing. So I suspect it's something either that I haven't set up right, or possibly a bug, or maybe it's not fully implemented in VICE. Not quite sure which of those scenarios it is, but it would have been really fun to have. But even if that did work, and I was able to create a partition for each of the disks of that game, when you're inside the game, you really can't issue disk commands like you can like inside Turbo Macro Pro, where you can press @ and change partitions, etc. On the actual physical disk drive, there's a bunch of buttons on the front. And they do a whole bunch of neat stuff like swapping drive numbers around and things like that. And there's also one where you can, I think it's called Front Panel Partition Select, FPPS. And you can use those buttons in a way to swap between the partitions from the actual physical hard drive. So you could load Wizardry Disk 1, start the game, press a button to flip over to your save game panel, and then just hit enter and continue. And I thought it would be kind of neat. There doesn't seem to be a way to access those, buttons virtually. I would imagine that it'd be kind of cool if I click this here, and they've added these two commands, configuration and installation mode. It would be neat if there was a, partition drop down or some way to kind of just quickly change between the partitions on a hard drive. Maybe it's not possible, I'm not sure. But that would be a really nice quality of life enhancement, or super bonus points if this drew out like that front panel of the hard disk and you can kind of see the activity and how the lights work for real. But there's probably more things that probably me and 3 other people in the world are looking for. But it would be really neat to have. But that's really it. So hopefully you found this video useful. Once again, I had a ton of fun writing it, and I'm already thinking now how I can incorporate all of this information I just kind of learned into some future projects and how I'm writing some code on my Commodore 64. Again, thanks for sticking around to the end, and as always, I super appreciate every one of you that's been watching these, and take care.